Okay. Just make sure we're up here.
Live on Facebook. Amazing.
Yeah. All right. So awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So me and Lynn Gibson here. We're doing a webinar on the Scary Times Success Manual. And basically, I was reaching out, talking to different people, and Lynn had sent this. This thing I actually printed off is 10 things that you can be doing through a business crisis. And I print it off, I read it every morning, and I talked to Lynn and said, hey, can we get this out as a webinar, to our list and get this on Facebook, because I just thought it was just excellent stuff. So, and then Lynn, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself. I've known Lynn for a couple years now and just have always respected your advice and just the positivity that you bring to situations, and we could really use that right now. So, Lynn, if you introduce yourself.
Well, there's not a lot of advantages of being the old guy, but I suppose looking back 40 years now in business and going through so many of these crisis time in the past, you're able to have some experience to look back on how you handled those things and how it actually went. I was a financial guy for about 35 years. I had some unique ability in terms of marketing those practices, so I kind of when I so-called retired, I started working more as a business coach, helping advisors and then other business owners and salespeople create some unique ways of positioning themselves and marketing. And now I act as a business coach in several areas, showing people some unique ways to position their business. This particular issue we're going to talk about today, whatever I know about these issues, as a coach has come from the fact that I have just been a perpetual student all my life. And I was in a coaching program in Chicago called Strategic Coach, a guy named Dan Sullivan's program. And it's fantastic. I would encourage anyone to look that up and maybe consider going. But it was back in 2008, I think, when the crisis came then. And it was so debilitating. He put out something called the Scary Times Survival Guide or Survival Manual. And that had such an impact on me back then that when this issue started, and frankly, I mean, I was like almost everyone initially early last week, I was paralyzed by this. It was so frightening.
Yeah.
I just got stuck in my tracks. And after about 48 hours of that and just realizing, gosh, I've got to get up and find something positive, I literally remembered this guide, and I went back and looked at it, and I thought, gosh, this still applies today as it did back then. And again, getting me a good mindset. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah. And when you sent it, I read it, and I thought it was new. I thought it was for this crisis, and then saw that it was actually from 2008. And it just reminds me that I say this a lot to my team. There's this idea that methods are many, principles are few. And, the principles of getting through a crisis are not different when it's a pandemic than when it's the different things that have happened. So I really appreciated you sending that. And I thought that was just great. Yeah.
Well, it is a lot the same. Let's jump in and we'll go through some of the issues here that we might find interesting. So,
and real quick, Lynn, as we go through, if you guys, the people that are on, if you want to, say something, chat, you got a question, along the bottom, if you're on your computer, there should be a chat function that you can use, and I'll be watching that. So if you do have something, just let us know. And also this guide that we're referred to, I'm going to be sending this to everybody, and I'd encourage you guys to print it out as well. And just something good to read every morning, start your day out right, and just get through this. So take it away, Lynn.
Yeah, again, I want to give all the credit to this to Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach. I'm still struggling to come up with a good idea on my own. So this is something that he put out, and it's just extremely helpful. You talked about how this crisis in the moment feels unique, but in fact, we've had a lot of these. And I just got to thinking back and just in my career, that some of these other challenges, although in some ways different economically, felt the same. I actually started selling life insurance in the late 70s and was selling mutual funds and stocks in the early 80s. And just as I got started with almost no clientele and just scratching along, that's when the federal government decided to do something about all the inflation of the 70s, and interest rates went to 21%. Now, I'm selling stocks and bonds, but you can get 21% on the money in your checking account. I wasn't having a lot of luck. It's kind of funny back then because there were actually 30-year treasury bonds yielding 15%, and we could not sell them. Tax-free bonds yielding 12% for 15 years, guaranteed, couldn't sell them. I'd like to have some of those today. We were dead in the water. It felt much like today. Then in 87, I was there when the Dow Jones dropped over 25% in one day, still the biggest one-day drop. Felt like the world was coming to an end. And in the 90s, some of you may remember, the government wanted to kind of speed up the economy from the 80s. So they started creating all these advanced depreciation schedules where literally people would buy real estate, even if it didn't make any money, it'd be losing money, but the tax advantages were so attractive. That led to one of the biggest real estate overbuildings ever. I remember driving through Dallas back then, and huge skyscraper buildings were empty. And I was doing a lot of real estate then. And then, of course, 9/11, you know, how at that time felt just equally scary. And, you know, in 08, this mortgage meltdown was very much like today, where we would have had some major problems if the government hadn't stepped up and said, we're going to put out money and guarantee things, and things leveled off. Today feels very much like that. And so, you know, I think they're all the same. And I'd love to tell you guys, after 40 years of going through these, I'd like to tell you, boy, I've got the secret to how you can just overlook this and go do well. And that is just not true. But I think having lived through these, there's some things that I've learned, and that is if you can get the right mindset, you can look at this in a different way, then actually some positive things can come from this. And I think, Brian, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So and I think through this, one of the reasons, you know, I want to do this is, you know, I talk to a lot of business owners, and it is so negative. The feeling is so negative. Everybody's talking about how this is going to last for years, and the impact and job loss and all this stuff. And I just find myself talking to people, and like it's almost panic attack inducing. And so, you know, I have come back to this sheet several times, and I think it is something, you know, seasoned business owner or not, you're scared right now. And you know, maybe you're not, but maybe some people are doing well, but overall there's a negative feeling, and so I think this will be a good discussion.
It's hard not to be scared. Again, I've gone through these for so long and got a history of overcoming them. In fact, when I was writing that list of the history, I had to think about what those things were. They're just hardly even in my memory anymore. And yet still, you're right, I'm as scared and concerned today than I've ever been. So it's almost a daily basis, maybe an hourly basis. I have to kind of come back and remind myself, because this can be a frightening situation. So I think the key to this is starting out with number one. The key to having a different mindset is you got to forget about yourself and focus on other people. This uncertainty, one of the things it does is it drives you into being in an isolated position, and it just almost feels helpless. And the key is we've got to fight against that. We've just got to believe that the best defense is a good offense. We got to go in the opposite direction and reach out and try to start connecting to people and help other people try to transform their negatives into positives. Because the more you can do that, it just leaves less time to worry. And you can begin to be a confidence for everyone else, and then that becomes a confidence to yourself. So the number one thing I think you've got to do is you just got to constantly fight back against that normal, natural feeling to go inward, and you've got to go outward. Find a way to move in an opposite direction, and that's the key.
Yeah, I love that. And that's with our marketing clients that we work with. I've been telling them all, you know, you've got to be the light in the darkness. You've got to get out there. You know, there is going to be another side to this. And when we get on the other side, the people that are helpful during this time, that are thinking about others during this time, are the ones that are going to win. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to say doing this means you're going to win and win immediately. Nope. Maybe it's just that simply you won't have time to think about your own problems.
Yeah.
You're thinking about others. And I'll tell you, keeping a positive mindset is just absolutely important. So I don't think there's any idea better than just simply this one. We've got to go outward instead of inward and fight against that. In that process, then, we've got to forget about our commodity and focus on our relationships. In these kind of times, you just become so uncertain and frightened about this commodity, the things that you do, the things that you sell, and the job you've got. And what we've got to do is try to disregard our commodity and focus on deepening these relationships, even if it's with our family and our friends, our team members. We just got to stop thinking about our commodity and think about our relationships. Because every time we strengthen a relationship, it increases the likelihood of your commodity having value. And when you really think about it, I'm not so sure our commodity has really ever been in any way. It's been about our relationships. But in the height of business, when things are going good, that's what we're thinking about. These times remind us that it's really our relationships that have value anyway.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of goes with the first one, just thinking about other people first, how you can help them, not what you can sell them. I think, the emails that I'm getting where people are trying to remind me about something I might have been interested in, a week ago, it's very tone deaf, and hurts more than it helps.
Yeah. I've been really trying to get out and call on my clients. And as you know, I'm an advocate of in business, you should try to dress well. I called on some folks dressed like I was ready for business, and they were just got a defense up, hey, and I'm not here to talk about business, which I wasn't there to talk about that at all. So I literally went back and got an old raggedy pair of blue jeans and a sweatshirt and went out and called on the men and just came by. That way it looked as obviously I wasn't there to talk about business, but just to ask them, how's it going? How can I help you? So the people who use this time to enhance their relationship are going to come out so much stronger on the other end.
Yeah, and I think too, something I've talked to several people about. I talk to people, around the nation. We work with some people overseas, and this crisis, the neat thing about it has been that it has shrunk the world. And I'm talking to a guy in Croatia, and he's having the same problems I'm having. His city's on lockdown. He's scared for his family, and this is a time when you have something in common with every single person. And I don't know that we'll see that again in our lifetime. So it's a great time.
What a lot of people are doing is calling up and trying to share that misery, and that it's nowhere. You can be the one that calls up with something positive, not in a foolish way, but something that you can share with them that'll add some value. Your relationship is going to get enhanced. And this number 3 just goes along with that. Forget about the sell and focus on creating value. So earlier I said, forget about your commodity and focus on your relationship. Now we're going one step further. Let's forget about the sale, focus on value. People never like being sold all alone. And when their future is kind of hanging out there, then they certainly are slammed shut. They've got no interest in talking about that. But what it's always been about is what value you can bring. And through this time, it kind of helps you realize that maybe it was other parts of your value that was more beyond even the product that you were selling. Just like before, but even more now, the purpose is to talk with people about how can I help you overcome your problems? What opportunities do you have? How can I enforce what you're already doing well? And when you start thinking about what real value is it that I bring, well, let me do that. You might find that maybe it was your value in something else that was more than the sale anyway.
Yeah, I think something I've talked to several people about with this is, we're coming out of an economy that was so amazing, best economy in my lifetime, and to be successful, you just had to kind of open your doors. And that is not going to be the case on the other side of this. And I think if we take a minute, and I'm doing the same thing with my business, and we look inside and we say, what's working, what's not working, what could be better, I think that those businesses are going to be the ones that win on the other side of this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that almost, well, no matter what work you're doing, if you really look at it closely, what you're doing is you're helping people eliminate their dangers. If you're a tax CPA or something, you may be filling out a tax return, but you're helping people overcome their fear of the IRS. You're a person who reduces their risk. Well, there's probably some other ways you can do that outside of selling your product. If you're a marketing guy, you're trying to help them capture their opportunities. There may be another way to do that now without them actually buying your product, or you're encouraging them. So a lot of times this crisis really shows the real nature of what it is you're delivering. So the next step, I think, is you got to forget about your losses and start focusing on your opportunities.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough when the things you have in your hands start going out the door. And a lot of it is the way you used to do things. When that change starts happening, getting rid of your current game is tough. And so sometimes this brings about a time when you got to start thinking about a new game. What other new ideas or new energies? Are there new tools and resources that you've got to work with? If you just focus on what you had and your current game goes away, well, now new opportunities certainly become available for you to go out and do even more than what you were doing in the past.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's very easy to, if sales are going down, if this is, you lose some customers, you have to let people go. It's very easy to focus on that. But again, exactly what you're saying. If you focus on the opportunities, they're there. It reminds me of this story that Dave Ramsey tells that I've told my team a billion times. He talks about he was in the radio studio and this guy comes in, he's hat in hand, moping, and he goes out and talks to the guy, and the guy says, "Hey, Dave, I'm have to close my business down. So I'm in the landscaping business, and nobody. This is during 2008, so nobody needs their work done. I'm losing customers left and right." And Dave just told him, "Man, I'm sorry, that stinks, but you'll make it." And the next day, this guy comes in and he's, excited, happy, and, walks up to Dave and says, "Dave, my business has never been better. I'm getting customers left and right, making more money than I've ever made in my life. It's amazing." And Dave's like, "What business are you in?" And he says, "I'm in landscaping." And it's just, it really, there people are going to win, people are going to lose. It's kind of what mindset do you want to be, and which one do you want to be? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the purpose of this discussion here is that, again, I'd love to be able to say, "Oh, you're going to have all these opportunities come to you."
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but I can tell you this: what is a natural reaction when you're having appointments canceling now, and the things you were working on are gone, and all that's going out the window? It just sucks you into seeing nothing but losses, losses, losses. And that's natural.
Yeah.
But at some point, you've got to shake your head and go, "Okay, that's a given." Got to put that aside for a minute and think, okay, with what's left, what opportunities do I have? And if you really think in that way, it's surprising. There's more out there than you think. Now, is that a guarantee?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get there? I don't know, but focusing on those losses is a disaster.
That's great.
And that leads us to this next one. Forget about your difficulties and focus on your process, on your progress. Look, when these things are tough, you get drawn into how bad things are and how difficult it is. But I think just like when you're exercising and you're pushing against that physical resistance, you get stronger. And when we are mentally pushing back against this and focusing on where we can go, you begin quickly to get mentally stronger. And so I think it's possible because of that, that in this most difficult time, you actually start picking up momentum and making more progress than you think, just because you're getting stronger every day, because your mind is saying, what are my opportunities? Where can I go? What can I do? And it's surprising day by day how big progress can be made.
Yeah, I love that. That's good.
And so number 6, I think it's a time where we got to forget about the future and focus on today. You know, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking out there. Where are we going? And I'm a business coach. I'm constantly saying, let's talk about your vision. Where do you want to be? But the reality is, man, there really is no future. It's just a concept. And of the people who say they can predict it, they're not doing very good at it. And then, you know, the reality is we just don't really know what that's going to hold. So I think it's just in these times of crisis, forget about that. It's about what can I do today in the next 24 hours? What can I do? And, you know, I've been doing that over the last 3 or 4 days. And the focus that I'm getting, thinking, what can I do right now? I wish I could keep that focus in the normal times, because I'm getting more creative done than I ever had. So that's the nature of a crisis. Sometimes there's an immediate call to action.
Yeah, I think you've read the book, The One Thing, before. We've talked about this. One of the things that he talks about is getting that game plan, those goals for the future, and then bringing them down to a one-day goal. And I think you're exactly right. Like, we can't think about, you know, we have no idea what the other side of this is going to look like. So making plans and goals isn't worth it. But if you're anything like me, you know, I get caught up in my head sometimes, and I'll be sitting there and I'll just get worried about stuff, and I'll find like 10, 15 minutes goes by and I haven't done anything. And then I've got to snap back to it. But taking the day and saying, okay, today, what can I get done that will help tomorrow be better? What can I get done today? What can I focus on? What's 1 or 2 things I can accomplish? Because one of the terrible things with this is we don't know if this is going to last 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, but we do know what we can do today. So
Yep. Yeah, it's just a time to take action. And when you're focused on the future,
yeah,
how unclear it is, as you said, it's hard to know what action to take. But if you're just focused on the next 24 hours, you can get some clarity on what you should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think with that comes forgetting about who you were and focus on who you can be. You know, when times are tough, you start questioning who you are, and when a change comes, it's a little disrupting because you're not able to be who you used to be, and we are defined by what we do and how we do it and the way we do things every day. That's how we define ourselves and get value. You wipe that out and you start seeing you got a whirlwind of change. And maybe what it's time now is to start working more from what your true values are. What are your true operating principles? Those things never change. And maybe it's a time to start rethinking about who you can be going forward instead of trying to play that old game about who you used to be. And so now maybe is the time to start taking opportunities to be more self-directed and self-managed and self-motivated. I think that's one of the keys.
Yeah. No, yeah, I love that. That's good.
Number 8, forget about events and focus on your responses. You know, things are going well. We give ourselves credit for being in control. We're the one doing it. You know, when things are going good, it's us. Well, if that's the way we're thinking and things start going bad, well, then we blame ourselves then. If you're going to take the credit, we get the blame. And sometimes through these crises, it's kind of an awakening to realize we can't control anything. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned going through my past of all these crises, that I came out of that realizing I can't control a single thing. And I've actually begun to start thinking about if I have any value, if I'm good at what I do, the real way to define that is not that I'm controlling things, but that I'm very good at how I react to difficult things. And that's what great leaders do, great business owners.
Yeah, if you read, I'm sure you have the 7 Habits. have you read Seven Habits, Highly Effective
Yes.
People?
Yeah.
This is directly out of there. One of the biggest points that I took away from that is you cannot control what happens, but you can control your response. And
Yep.
I was thinking about this. I was going to a morning meeting and I was running a little late, and I hit every red light on the way there. And by the time I got to my meeting, I was so anxious and frustrated that, that the meeting was okay. It was with a friend. So, but I was kind of complaining, and then the next day I read that chapter, and I had another meeting the next morning, and same thing happened. Hit every red light, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get there when I get there. This is fine. The lights aren't, working against me. There's not some troll switching them on and off. Like, it just is what it is. My attitude was night and day different. I was so much just, calm, and it was a much better meeting because of it.
Yeah, I have situations sometimes where my staff or someone I'm working with is saying to me, "Can you believe this happened? Can you believe we got this problem?" And I just want to say, well, if I'm struggling, I'm struggling with not believing it didn't happen sooner, that it happened that way versus this way. You just kind of, at some point, you start to get ingrained into almost expecting that there's going to be challenges. And now, if I have any value, it's how I'm going to react to that.
Yeah.
Number 9, forget about what's missing and focus on what's available. Kind of like we talked about before, when things are going out the door and you're losing all kind of things, your resources are going away. Boy, that gets paralyzing. And at some point, if you're going to overcome this, you have to stop and say, let's quit doing accounting of what we've lost. That's done. Let's do some accounting of what we got left. What do we have available? And it's amazing when you stop thinking and looking at what's missing, and you start concentrating on what's left, you begin to see you've got some resources that you never thought you had.
Yeah.
A classic one, I work with a marina and a campground, and of course they're losing relationships or bookings left and right. And all we could do is just concentrate on one after the other after the other. But finally I said, okay, wait a minute, that's gone. What do we have? Well, I realized that we put in a texting system to communicate with people on the way. And I realized something I had not really thought about. We had 5,000 text messages, 5,000 cell phones in a database where we could put a message right on someone's phone. Now, my gosh, that's a resource right there. Would have never even thought about using that when all the bookings were coming in. But because I finally got to the point of saying, forget about what we're losing. What do we got around here to use? And it's amazing. You got a lot of things that are available when you just get down to looking for them.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Craig Rochelle, but he does a leadership podcast. And one of the things he said that sticks with me a lot is that the lack of resources drives ingenuity. And if you think about it, this, exactly what you're saying is so true. We could say, man, I need X amount of money to do this, but I need $10,000 for something. Well, what if you only had 1,000? What would you do? And you'll find a lot of times you can still do it, and probably better.
Yep.
Now, don't tell my customers that. I don't want my customers saying that we're going to give you 1,000 now. See what you do with 1,000.
So lastly here, I think that the key thing is that, and I bet you everyone on this line is already doing this one. Forget about your complaints and focus on your gratitude. It is very easy with the difficulty of where we are to get caught up in a conversation of how bad it is, how long will it be, and it's just so natural to go towards that negative direction. And when we do that, we invite back further negative comments. And then it starts just gravitating into everyone talking about how bad it can be. But if we can focus on the gratitude side of it, what are our opportunities? How can we think better? We focus on what we're grateful for, what we have, and we start communicating that. The exact thing happens. We just start attracting. If you say to someone, let me tell you about this great thing I've got going on, their response will be, Well, let me tell you this great thing I'm working on. So if we can focus on gratitude, it attracts grateful people and grateful ideas. And I think that's the key way we're going to have to get through this.
Yeah, and I yesterday I was talking to some business folks, and the way I kind of did this is their initial thing was complaining, talking about how long it was going to last, all this stuff, right? And I just try to turn around and give those positives and say, man, I had this great conversation with a teammate or just that we're taking care of, different things like that because if like what you're saying, everybody's going to go to the negative, and you're just going to be sucked into it. And so you gotta be careful. But same thing with my wife. I've been trying to be positive around her, and because we got two kids at home, and she's got all the time in the world just to worry. And so I've been very careful with how we talk and letting her know things are all right, and trying to stay positive, be grateful for what we have, and that's been good.
Yeah. So, as we kind of wind it up here again, I would love to be so smart that I could tell everyone on this line, you do this and things are going to be fine. We can't do that. But I think at this time, the key is going to be our mindset. Even if we do all these things that we've talked about today, I don't know that immediately is going to create great results, but I'm absolutely sure that it'll put us in a mindset to survive, to begin thriving. And when this thing does clear up, we're going to be prepared to come out of the gate so much faster than if we don't do these things.
Yeah, that's great.
So I love to have a great group together and hear from everybody on the line. How have you become better already? What's one thing that through this crisis you've already become better at than you would have? Is there one thing that sticks out in your mind, Brian?
I think and for everybody on the line, if you want to, there's an option to raise your hand. We can even put you on here if you want to talk for a bit. If anybody's brave enough to do that. But for me, again, you sent this to me a week ago, and I printed it out, and it's on my desk right here. I've got it front and back. And just reading this has helped stay positive. Again, it's so easy to go to the negatives and think about, you watch the news. Oh my God, like it is just doom and destruction. And so just being able to breathe, having clarity for today, this has helped me a ton.
I made a list here of a couple of things. One of the things I'm reminded of is a lot of businesses that are doing well, they almost get a little bit of an order taker capacity. I think about restaurants and people like that whose customers come and go when they may not really even know them that well. But when the crisis comes and you want to try to communicate with them, I think I've learned that it's so important to make sure I've got my clients' contact info and I have a relationship with them so that in this crisis, if I need to say something to them, my voice will get through instead of them being strangers. I thought I did that pretty well, but I'm even more wanting to do that. The other thing that I've kind of learned through this is that, when times are good, I'm going directly to my clients, okay? But in this time, I've actually just stopped that, and I started going to people like you, Brian, and saying, do I have anything, can I add value to any of the clients you have? The thing I've kind of learned through this is that's just one of the great ways of building your business. Instead of trying to go find that particular client or customer you want to work with, go find someone who also serves the customers you're serving and say to them, do I have any value that I can lend to you that you can then lend to your clientele? What a way to hook up with new people getting endorsed by someone else. So in my effort to try to just go say to people, how can I help you? It's actually kind of got me exposed to their clients. So that's something that I do this.
And I think taking these principles and managing your business, interacting with your customers with these things in mind, and kind of spreading that message to them. I keep saying to my team, be the light in the darkness through this time. It is going to have a big impact on the other side. Guaranteed. I don't know. Can't guarantee it, but I believe that it will. And you get all these emails, man. If you search your email inbox for COVID-19 and coronavirus, I mean, you probably have 100 emails, or more. And to send something out that's not just here's how we're dealing with COVID-19, or in this time we're thinking about our customers, but to show real value and help hurting people, I think that is the best thing we can do. And that's the companies that do that, I truly believe are going to win on the other side of this.
I agree. So look, I don't know if I could be of a resource to the folks that you work with, Brian, but one of the things that I have developed and a big believer of is that there's a lot of folks out there who provide a service. They're doing it in kind of a one-off way in which it's kind of hard to define it and market it. So one of the things that I help my clients with is taking what they do and turning it into a system that they can brand and trademark.
I think there's not a better time to do that than now.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to email me or something, I'll give you that information in just a second. That's a workbook that you can actually walk through to try to take what you do and turn it into a name branded solution. The other thing is I do a lot of workshops. My thing is, finding your DNA, your distinct natural advantage, finding what's unique about you, then being able to brand it and trademark it and communicate it. So I work with a lot of professional advisors and business owners, salespeople, to kind of define what they do and put it in a way that enables them to uniquely market it, and then move further to look at ways in which they can operate more efficiently and things like that. So anyone who wants to talk about that more, about the workshops or how I work directly with people, I'm glad to do a free session and talk about the work that we do. And that's how you can contact me.
I'll say that, I've worked with Lynn and we've hung out a bunch, and just the wisdom that you've had has really helped my business out. And I've appreciated that. And that's why I wanted to kind of have you on. And if you are in a place where you want to bounce some ideas off of somebody smarter than me, smarter than yourself, Lynn is a great resource. So, I'll email everybody your contact information as well.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, just wish everyone the best. Let's keep our heads up and keep plugging. There's something good on the other side of this.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Stay positive. I'll send this worksheet out as well. And again, just encourage you to print that out, read it in the morning. There is an other side to this. It is going to be okay. Your customers are going to be okay. Just got to get through it together. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. See you soon.